Welcome to Breaking the News Plus on this Monday night. We are going to have a candid conversation with AJ Lagoe because AJ was at the White House Correspondents' dinner this past Saturday night when everybody knows by now shots rang out. AJ, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Jana.
So you were in D.C.
Yeah, Gary Knox, our investigative photojournalist, and I were in D.C. at the Correspondents' dinner.
And so tell me from your vantage point, what happened?
There was a lot of protesters outside the hotel, clearly, protesting the war in Iran. They had the red carpet set up in there. And even before everything went down with the ballroom, there were, a couple protesters who'd rushed through the lobby and got in front of the camera holding up, signs, arrest Pete Hegseth for war crimes. And, it was getting spicy.
Okay.
And then you go down through security, and the first level you have to show your ticket, just kind of flash it up so that they know you can go down the escalator. Mm-hmm. And then there's security. You go through there and you get wanded and, like going through the airport. They're looking at my cufflinks to, make sure that they're cufflinks.
So there's a lot of security there.
There was security to get down in. And then there was an area where they had a bar and like a cocktail hour in this lobby. And then you went down a few more stairs down into the ballroom.
Okay.
So the main dinner had started. It's a little after 8:30. You're just sitting there starting to eat your salad, and pop, 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 pop. I hear from the back of the ballroom.
What did you think the sound was?
Oh, gunshots. I had my phone in my hand, and I just immediately hit record. And you can even hear me talking to people on the table going, that was gunshots. And then people start screaming, get under the tables, get down. And there was... Secret Service and protective details are kind of rushing all across this ballroom because you have the dignitaries, if you will, are seated all across this very large ballroom that had like 2,500 people in it.
So not just where we see President Trump, but there's dignitaries around the room?
Sure. There's President Trump and the First Lady and Vice President Vance are on the dais at the very front. But all throughout the room at different tables you had... Marco Rubio's there. So the Secretary of State, the Speaker of the House is there. Various cabinet level. Pete Hegseth is there. Secretary Kennedy was there. There's a lot of the D.C. power brokers are in this room.
And so immediately when you hear it, do you see anything happen?
You heard the shots. And I turned to look, and then it seemed like the doors opened in the back, or they got hit, or very loudly. And that's when you go, uh-oh, like I've heard gunshots, and now the doors are open, and then you see people with guns up, security, but you don't know right away.
Right.
And they're all rushing to get to their protectees that are scattered all across this room, and clearly, the president and vice president are getting, taken down below the table up in the front, and you don't know what's going on. And, some of the protective agents are jumping across tables almost, trying to get to where, the person they're trying to get out of the room was sitting.
What'd you do?
I turned my camera on and started rolling. Photojournalist Gary Knox, I think, did the same, kind of that journalistic instinct of like, whatever's going on, we have to capture it, right? You live by the mantra, video or it didn't happen.
Right.
So that's really what I did. You're kind of ducking a little bit because all of a sudden you have... people with rifles, pointed out at the crowd and kind of behind you a little bit, and you don't know what's on the other side, and so you're ducking. We were ducking a little bit, and also trying to make sure we were getting video of whatever was about to happen. Which is, you see a lot of criticism online right now.
Sure.
Like, people are just pulling out their cell phones, and you got to remember this is a room with hundreds of more than 1,000 journalists in it. Like,
right.
Your first instinct is we need to report on what's going on.
Absolutely. At that point, or when you heard the shots, could you figure out that it was outside the room, or were you unsure on if it was inside the room?
At first, I didn't know. This room is very big.
Okay.
It was at the back of the ballroom. And so I couldn't tell right away that it was in the very back of the ballroom or it was outside in the lobby. I wasn't sure in the moment exactly where it had happened.
And did anything come on the loudspeaker to say this is what's going on, or is it just chaos in the beginning?
It's just chaos in the beginning. they're trying to, sweep the president and other, top officials out of the room, and you've suddenly got Secret Service everywhere with rifles pointing out at the crowd because they don't know what's going on.
Sure.
It took a little while. We started hearing like one down out in the lobby. We didn't know if that meant somebody was dead. We didn't know what was going on. So I think people sitting at home with the TV on might have started to get reports before we did in the room of exactly what happened. Wolf Blitzer with CNN was outside in the lobby and, apparently witnessed some of it and ended up calling in and being on CNN pretty quickly. He got pushed into a bathroom because he, as the gunman went running through, I say that video, it kind of looks like a scene from the zombie movies, like 28 Days Later, where this guy's just like full out sprinting, trying to bust through the security, wanding area. We didn't get too far, but that's where it all seemed to go down.
What was the mood in the room? And the reason I ask is that from what I can see, covering so many tragedies, people react in all kinds of different ways. And when you have a room full of journalists, there are some trying to do the job of journalism. Some people might just be absolutely terrified and hiding under their table. A little bit of both. Confusion.
I think you had the gamut. You certainly had, journalists who were, I need to document this, and cameras are coming up all over the place. You also have a whole bunch of people in tuxedos and gowns down under the table. And I can't say this is 100%, but we had the conversation after that it looked like many of the people who quickly got down under a table, down below the chairs, were of a younger generation than me that probably have come up in the school shooting area where they've run drills. You hear a shooting, and it seemed like a lot of people knew the safest spot was under the tables, and it looked like there was almost, and sometimes a age gap in those who got down quick and those who were sticking their heads up looking around.
How long were you in there in that kind of category of chaos where you're under the tables and unclear as to what's happening?
I think there was about 5 to 10 minutes of true chaos. And then after that, people realized, all right, there is so much security around with, rifles up and keeping an eye on it that we're not in any immediate danger. And then it was you're waiting around. What happened? Can we get up? Can we go?
I was going to say, they don't let you out.
They didn't say you couldn't get out, but you kind of, this is a very crowded room. It wouldn't have been safe for people to be trying to, bum rush the exits by any means. And also the exits were where the gunfire came from. So everybody was kind of staying put, waiting to know what's going on. And then after 20 minutes, half an hour, you actually had the White House Correspondents president come out and said, everybody please take your seats. We think the show is going to go on. We think the president's going to be coming back out.
Just to do the whole thing after
and
gunshot?
The show will go on, was kind of what we were told. And, at this point, we don't know exactly what happened. We've heard gunfire. We're starting to hear someone was shot. And so you're a little surprised, but the podium still has the presidential seal on it. And if you cover the president at all, if that seal is still on there, that means he's still there. And when they take the seal off of the blue podium, he's gone. Well, we were sitting there another 10 minutes, and suddenly someone comes out and takes the seal off, and you knew President Trump had left the premises. And, a short time after that, they came out and said, for security reasons, we've been asked to shut this down, which is, probably the right call, given everything that was going on. But it sounded like even the president wanted this to continue and happen, and had to listen to the security folks to decide, all right, we need to call this.
Were you scared?
No, honestly, I don't think I took the time to be scared. I think I've been a journalist a long time, and you end up around some dangerous stuff, and there was never a moment where I was truly scared. And I don't think anybody at my table truly was either. You're looking around, and certainly there's alarm when you hear gunshots, and then the doors open, and you don't know who's coming through those doors. But after that initial moment of alarm, was chaos and it was calm at the same time.
Using your journalistic hat right now, you were in that hotel, the DC Hilton. You know the layout of the hotel. In your opinion, was security pretty good? Did it surprise you that this could happen, or were there gaps?
I think security worked for the most part like it was supposed to. Can you always fine-tune something? Now, there are rings of security around this hotel, and this hotel in DC circles is really stinking famous. I mean, this is where Ronald Reagan was shot when I was a kid. So it's no stranger to having high-profile events. That's kind of routine at this hotel. But you have security all the way around the hotel. I don't think you could get a vehicle near the hotel. You couldn't get into the hotel after 2 p.m. without security check, at least showing like that you were a guest at the hotel. And, you know, they'd shut down all the public stuff. There were no restaurants and bars in the hotel open. Mm-hmm. You had to, you know, be a guest, have a ticket to the event to get in there. And then, you know, as you went down through, there was security. You could see them. Mm-hmm. I think this guy did exploit a bit of a loophole to get as far as he did. But at the end of the day, security stopped him before he ever even made it into the room where the president and vice president were.
Right.
So in some levels, the security did work. And, you know, thanks to, you know, the brave members of the Secret Service that were there, and one of them took a bullet in his vest.
Right.
But it's amazing that no one was harmed. You know, truly, even the gunman did not end up harmed. You know, it sounds like there might have been an exchange of gunfire. We still don't know exactly how he was taken into custody. But from my perspective, it looks like security worked pretty much the way it should.
So how does the night end? Like, where does everybody go once the all clear happens? What's the mood?
People are kind of just like, what do we do? And, you know, you exit and you go upstairs. But the hotel is still locked down. This is a major crime scene. The whole hotel is. Mm-hmm. You know, they're trying to figure out, well, where's his room? Where did he come from? If you were in, you know, people are kind of sitting around in the lobby. And then we know President Trump is going to be speaking from the White House shortly, you know, and a bunch of the journalists are rushing over to cover that. You know, jokingly, it was like the best dressed press conference ever because everybody's in ball gowns and tuxedos covering a...
It was a striking scene to see the president speaking to the nation in a tuxedo and reporters in formal wear.
Yeah. So some are rushing out to cover that. Others of us are in the hotel bar that's shut down and there's TVs up. But there's nobody there to turn the volume up. So like CNN is on and you can kind of almost hear what the president's saying. So people are trying to pull up the feed on their phone. So it's like playing all over the bar, coming from people's phones, trying to hear what he's saying on TV so that we know what's going on. And then, you know, once you kind of had a better handle on it, I was talking with our folks here in the newsroom and sending them some video and doing some phone calls for the news that night. And then we realized it's getting pretty late, and we still haven't had dinner yet. We're kind of hungry, so it was go wander out into D.C. in your tuxedo and find a place to grab a bite.
Was this your first Correspondents dinner?
It is. Probably my last. I don't know if they'll invite me back. I think we were probably the only local press that was in the room, as far as I know. Georgia Fort from here in Minneapolis was there also as an invited guest, just like we were, because we were there to pick up an award for our journalism. But you have to be a member of the White House, you know, press corps, the Correspondents Association, to even go or be an invited guest.
Right. What a strange first experience.
It really was. It was memorable, put it that way.
Well, thank you for telling us that firsthand account. I know a lot of people were curious if you saw some of AJ's, you know, social media videos. Just wanted to give you the full story of what he and Gary Knox kind of witnessed there in Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us, JC.
My pleasure.
All right. That's all for Breaking the News Plus. We'll see you next time.